Core algorithm was a solo breakthrough, one of those late-night epiphanies you can't force. My partner was more for moral support. Xavier's voice, amplified by the microphone, filled the cavernous hall of the ACM Tech Symposium. On the projector screen behind him, a slide displayed our code, my code, making him a sharp, confident silhouette against the blinding white light. A few people in the audience chuckled politely. I didn't. My seat in the third row, I felt a strange calm settle over me, a chilling, crystalline focus. My friend Talia, sitting beside me, squeezed my arm. I leaned over and whispered my reply, my voice barely a rustle of air. He'll regret that wording. We met in a packed third-year comp sci lecture, two people trying to find a power outlet in a sea of MacBooks. Xavier had a smile that could disarm a bomb and a way of explaining complex theories that made them sound simple, elegant. Our first collaboration was a small class project, and we celebrated finishing it at a grimy university library cafe at 2 a.m., drinking burnt coffee and feeling like we were on the verge of inventing the future. That was the good memory. The first red flag came a week later, during the in-class presentation, when he casually took credit for a particularly tricky piece of my code that had saved us 48 hours of work. Said we found a solution, but the way he looked at the professor made the we feel singular. I dismissed it. He was the better speaker, the showman. I was the builder. We all have our roles. For 18 months, our partnership was the engine of my life. We were building a machine learning model to predict protein folding, thesis work with real-world applications. Our world was a blur of late nights in the lab, shared Google Docs, and a dedicated Slack channel that pinged at all hours. In October, we had a breakthrough that felt like watching lightning strike. In December, a major journal accepted our preliminary paper. It was intoxicating, but the balance was shifting so slowly I almost didn't notice. He handled the grant applications. I handled the code refactoring. He presented our findings to our faculty advisor, Dr. Monroe. I stayed up all night running the simulations to make sure the findings were solid. He'd say, "You're just better at the detail work, you have the patience for it." I'd rationalize it as a fair division of labor. Then the small betrayals began to stack up. An abstract submitted with his name listed first, which he blamed on an administrative error. A research stipend that was deposited entirely into his account because he'd forgotten to add my banking details to the paperwork. He always paid me back, eventually, with that disarming smile. The discovery was an accident. I was searching our shared cloud drive for an old data set when a typo in my search query pulled up a file I'd never seen before. Draft application for the prestigious Sterling Innovators Grant, a private $80,000 postgrad fellowship. It was dated 6 weeks prior. The author was Xavier Wallace. The project description was our thesis verbatim. The list of contributors had a single name, his. That's when the quiet work began. For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was Xavier's collaborative partner. By night, I became an archivist of my own work. Used a script to pull down our entire GitHub repository, every single commit, timestamped and attributed. I exported our 23,417 Slack messages into a searchable database. I meticulously cataloged email chains where I had proposed the foundational architecture, complete with Dr. Monroe's encouraging replies. The scale of his deception was breathtaking. He wasn't just taking credit, he was systematically erasing me. The breaking point came a week before our thesis was due. I logged into the university submission portal to upload our final draft and was met with an error message. This project has already been submitted by another user. An automated email from the Dean of Academic Integrity landed in my inbox a moment later. A plagiarism flag had been raised against me for attempting to submit duplicate work. His submission, timestamped an hour earlier, had locked me out. Dr. Monroe and the entire department review board were CC'd. I sat there, staring at the screen, my blood turning to ice. My phone buzzed. It was an email from Xavier. "Look, you're a decent coder, but you lack the vision to carry a project of this magnitude. It needed a single, decisive leader to get it over the finish line. I took that step. It's better for both of us if you just accept your supporting role. Don't make this messy." In that moment of perfect, silent fury, my plan began. It wasn't a plan of anger, but of precision. I opened the PDF of the thesis he had submitted. He had been arrogant and therefore sloppy. Buried deep in the appendix was a block of commented-out debugging code I had written months ago. It was a messy, inefficient function I'd abandoned, and I'd left a self-deprecating comment in the code itself. A monument to my own stupidity. He had copied everything, even my digital graffiti. That was his monument now. The first person I called was Zoe Tanaka, a tech IP lawyer my cousin had recommended. Her voice on the phone was calm and sharp. She didn't offer sympathy, she offered a strategy. For the next 2 weeks, my life was a meticulous process of assembling a fortress of evidence. The cost wasn't money, but time and sleep. One night, I was remotely accessing the university's server logs from my apartment when I saw Xavier's remote session pop up as active. My heart hammered against my ribs. Had he seen my activity? I killed my connection and didn't sleep for 2 days, but he never mentioned it. He thought he was safe. My dossier, when it was finished, was a work of art. It contained, 1. A 52-page index summary of our Slack communications. 2. A complete GitHub commit history, showing 91% of the core logic was authored by my account. 3. 7 key email threads with timestamp proof of my architectural proposals. 4. The file metadata from his secret Sterling grant application. 5. A video recording of a guest lecture where I, not Xavier, had answered a visiting professor's complex question about the very algorithm he claimed was his late-night epiphany. 6. And of course, a screenshot of the code snippet from Appendix. See, the most ironic piece of evidence came from a source I never expected. A fellow student, Talia, had a time-lapse video of the main computer lab from a personal project she was working on. The footage from the night of his supposed solo breakthrough clearly showed him at a party on the other side of campus, while I was alone in the lab, staring at a whiteboard for 6 consecutive hours. Zoe called it the nail in the coffin. Built our case, and we waited for the academic integrity hearing. The hearing was held in the dean's conference room, a sterile space that smelled of old books and floor polish. Dean Wallace sat at the head of a long mahogany table, flanked by Dr. Monroe and 2 other tenured professors. Xavier was there with a student union representative, looking composed, even a little bored. I sat opposite him with Zoe. I'm here to clarify the record of my contributions, I began, my voice even. Xavier launched into his narrative. He was the visionary, the leader. I was the diligent helper, the supporting cast. He painted a picture of generosity of him carrying me across the finish line. He was so convincing for a moment even I almost believed him. Then Zoe began. She didn't argue. She simply presented the data. First, the GitHub logs. Xavier's face tightened. He tried to explain it away. I was more of a hands-on coder. He was the theorist, the architect. Division of labor, he insisted. Then Zoe presented the Slack history, the emails, the video of my lecture. His composure started to crack. The air in the room grew thick. For the final act, Zoe projected the appendix from his submitted thesis onto the wall screen. She highlighted the specific block of commented-out code. Mr. Wallace, she said, her voice cutting through the silence, can you explain the purpose of this function? He stammered, calling it legacy code, an old test. Then can you please read the author's comment aloud for the board? He stared at the screen, his face turning a blotchy red. He refused. Dr. Monroe leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. Read it, Mr. Wallace. Silence. Zoe read it for him, a monument to my own stupidity. Xavier crumpled. Not physically, but all the energy, all the arrogant charisma drained out of him, leaving a hollowed-out shell. He started rambling about the pressure, the competition, a misunderstanding. Dean Wallace held up a hand and he fell silent. Everyone looked at me. He was right about one thing, I said, my voice quiet but clear. It was a supporting role. I supported his entire academic career. The email from the dean's office arrived 24 hours later. Summary expulsion for gross academic misconduct. His name was stripped from our preliminary paper. The Sterling Innovators grant was of course rescinded. News travels fast in a small department. The class Discord lit up with screenshots and speculation. Within a week, he was a ghost. His losses were total. The $80,000 grant vanished. Degree gone. His reputation incinerated. The last I saw of him was 6 months later. I was walking home from my new research lab and saw him through the window of a generic chain restaurant, wiping down tables. He wore a stained apron and the blank, anonymous expression of someone who had lost the thread of their own story. He didn't see me. My renewal was quiet. I was granted sole authorship of the thesis, and with Dr. Monroe's support, secured a different, better research grant. I moved into a bright, airy apartment downtown, far from the campus shadows. My new work is thriving with a small, dedicated team where credit is given as freely as ideas. The peace is what I cherish most, the silence where the anxiety used to be. A year later, I was the one on stage at a conference in San Diego, presenting the next evolution of the project. During the Q&A, a young woman in the front row asked about the project's origin story. I smiled. The core algorithm was a breakthrough, born from what I thought was a partnership, I said. But I learned that some partners are more for moral support, for the person actually doing the work. He taught me that a solo breakthrough is sometimes just a collaboration you have to finish alone.